What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again and to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video, and today we're looking here at another tier list style video. Today we're going to be exploring Limit Break expansions and looking at Sugofest exclusives and deciding whether or not these specific legends are going to be worth Limit Break expanding, because, expansion is a very important factor of the game, and I know it's a question that a lot of people always ask, which particular character should I expand, and there's lots of factors that go into deciding which character you should expand, and they're just ones that outright you should always avoid. But in this video today, hopefully I can give you guys at least my insight and my opinions as to which of these characters you may want to consider expanding. And obviously there's lots of factors, as I said. It depends on your character box, it depends on the legends that you have, obviously. It also depends on what the character gets in terms of buffs. Do they get a buffed captain effect? Do they get cooldown? It really depends on that, and the biggest thing is it really is your decision at the end of the day on where you want to spend your materials, and you do have to be very, very careful because of how much of an investment these materials are to these characters. After you expand a Sugofest exclusive, especially if you're not one of those players that plays a lot of treasure map, you're not going to have any other materials to, specifically max limit break other characters that release, whether it be free-to-play, rev recruits, etc. So you do have to be very, very careful about it. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So I'm only going to be using 3 tiers, like the ones that I would personally limit break expand, ones that get buffed captain effects, but again, you may want to consider maybe not doing them, or if those are characters you use a lot, you may want to consider them because, the buffed captain effect can be used in hybrid and in tandem with other characters. And there's ones that like, a slight buffs, but maybe the character isn't as good anymore and it's kind of just like your choice. Characters that get straight up stat buffs with no cooldown, no captain effect are not going to be included here. I'm just going to be deleting them. I know that some of them will be getting cooldowns in here, but I probably won't include them anyway because the character is just not that good. So let's go ahead and start speedrunning through this, okay? So we're going to be skipping through a lot of these. Like a lot of these characters are just pretty bad. And again, these are the regular 6-star forms. The 6-star plus forms of these characters will be showing up very, very soon. So we can go ahead and talk about the 6-star plus characters when they actually arrive. Log Luffy unfortunately doesn't get a buffed captain effect, so see you later, buddy. And here we go, just keep going through these. Unfortunately, all these are just the regular 6-star form, so they're not very important. Eventually, we'll get to a character that doesn't require 6+, but not quite yet. Judge is an interesting one, but we'll get to his 6+ a little bit. Fujitora is pretty bad, no. Doflamingo, no. Frankie, no. Like, there's just so many characters here that just not really worthwhile. Shanks is probably the first one that we can say is like a somewhat usable captain. He gets a slight buff, which makes him okay. I guess if you're running like a mono int team, he's actually pretty solid for that. But again, it's a usable captain, I would say, but it's not like a god tier captain. But we're talking about a Kaido. He's actually one that you could potentially go up to. The expansion of Kuzan is negligent. It doesn't really matter. Tesoro is kind of like your choice. He does get a cooldown reduction. His captain effect does get upgraded. I wouldn't call it a usable captain effect, but it's an upgrade nonetheless. Katakuri, will get to him in a little bit. Kung Fu Luffy, no. Unfortunately, a lot of these characters with their expansions are just not that useful. Unfortunately, Jack is another interesting one. I'd say Jack is kind of like your choice because he does get a buffed captain effect. I believe he goes to a rainbow 3.5 times attack boost. But look, he's an EXP boosting captain. You're not really clearing high difficulty content with Jack. So the difference between the 3 times and the 3.5 for a character such as this that aims to do the easier content, it doesn't really matter. I wouldn't advise expanding him, but it is your choice. I think Cracker is a pretty great candidate. The big thing about Cracker is that he gets -3 cooldown, which is pretty awesome. He already has the crewmate effect that reduces his cooldown every time either another crewmate or another slasher or powerhouse uses a special, which is fantastic for this character's kit, so I like that about him. The rest of these characters, though, are not super useful. Vivi Rebecca is also like your choice. For some content, it's nice to have her expansion, which has -1 cooldown, but I don't think it's like a one you have to do. Even for Cracker, it's not one that you have to do, but I think that the buff that Cracker gets from his expansion is a far superior buff than what Vivi Rebecca gets, just in terms of the character's power. But let's continue on and see what we can find here. Kaido is also one that's kind of like your choice, because Kaido does get some cooldown reduction, which is pretty nice, and some stat buffs, which obviously make the character in and of himself much better. Halloween Ace does not have his expansion on global yet, but on Japan it recently arrived, and it is amazing. I would say this is a great candidate, but currently for global, you don't have to worry about it right now. Again, we'll probably make another one of these videos sometime in the future. Onami and Komurasaki, I think we'll get theirs next month, so I'm going to leave them out of this list for now. Chopper is... I'm going to put in the usable captains tier, because his captain effect, I believe, goes to a 4 times captain. He gets cooldown reduction as well. Like, he's a pretty decent candidate. Honestly, yeah, let's just put him in the great candidate. He's pretty good. Flat 4x, duping cotton candy. The fact that he becomes a 4 times captain doesn't really matter too much, but the cooldown reduction is really good for him. Huge buff for the character. Luffy, Zoro, and Sober Mask. Sober Mask is like kind of your choice. He does get a slight buffed captain effect, but it's not by much at all. It just slightly increases the chances of tandem slots appearing. Nothing too crazy. He doesn't even get cooldown reduction, I don't think, so like I don't really think it's that big of a deal to expand him. Like Shanks crew and Arlong crew, like Shanks crew is such a good legend, still probably one of the top 5 best legends in the game, but he doesn't get anything from his expansion. I don't believe he doesn't. I will actually double check that, but I'm pretty sure he doesn't get anything, like no cooldown reduction or anything. He does not. It is only stats. So yeah, that's unfortunate. You probably shouldn't expand Shanks, but honestly, if he's a character you use a lot, you should probably just do it anyway. But we're talking about characters that actually get straight up buffs from the expansion, and there's just a lot of them that don't, which is a bit of a shame. The super type legends are pretty annoying, unfortunately. None of them get amazing buffs. Blackbeard, though, is kind of your choice, because he does get cooldown reduction, which, for the way that Blackbeard is built, that's actually pretty useful. But unfortunately, Blackbeard is not like a usable character in 2021. You can use him in some instances, but not super useful. These guys are pretty bad. I think Law is actually a pretty great candidate for kind of the same reasons as Cracker. They're built very similarly. They have Sailor effects that reduce their cooldowns, and they also have cooldown reduction from their expansions. I think Law is a great choice. Definitely one of the first ones that I would be doing if I had the character. Progressing along here, none of these characters are like outright you need to do it. I mean, V3 Boa is a pretty decent choice. I'm going to leave it as a your choice, because she does get cooldown reduction. She is one of those units that, depending on the cooldown, you can stall for a pretty long time with her. So I guess technically, yes, it's not a terrible choice, but probably one that you don't need to worry about. Odin and Roger are also like your kind of choice. The cooldown reduction for Odin and Roger are like really good, and for that reason, I mean, for Roger specifically, he's the #1 legend in the game. I think most people would agree to that, or at least I agree to that. I think he is the best legend in the game, and him getting just additional cooldown plus stats on top of his expansion, if you have Roger, you should probably just get him completely maxed out. That's my opinion anyway. Halloween, Law and Mihawk, they're kind of okay. They do get cooldown reduction from their expansion, but like they're just okay. Not terrible choices. We got like Luffy and Sanji, who like it doesn't matter if you expand him or not. In my opinion, none of these characters really matter. Do the versus units get cooldown reduction? Let's check out versus Kaido. Does he get expansion cooldown? He does. That's actually pretty decent, you know. I'll leave them in the your choice tier. I know that these characters, I believe they get cooldown reduction as well, like Shirahoshi Man, Sherry V2, and Viva Rebecca V2. Yeah, they do get one additional cooldown. Like, that's, again, your choice. Actually, I don't know for Sanji Pudding. I mean, Sanji Pudding at this point, as this video is going live, is the only legend I don't own. And with the expansion, they do get the cooldown. Okay, again, that's your choice. I mean, a lot of these recent characters do get, like, -1 cooldown, so that's kind of cool. I wouldn't advise Enel, though. He's probably not worth it. And that's kind of it at this point. I mean, we've got some Japan legends down the bottom. We're just going to ignore those characters. But then you've got, like, the actual 6+ characters, so we can actually talk about them. A lot of these 6+ers, though, not that great. I know this guy does get a buffed captain effect, but it's a 4 times flat boost to Free Spirit, and there's so many other better Free Spirit captains you can use. If you have Sabo Koala, you'd just be using them over this Sabo anyway. That's the way I see it. For Rayleigh, I can't remember what Rayleigh gets from his expansion. I know for Global, we don't actually have it yet. What does he get? He does get -1 cooldown and a buffed captain effect. The captain effect is bad either way. You're not using him as a captain, but it's not out on Global yet. But he would actually be not a terrible choice. This guy's bad. You do get a buffed captain effect, but it's not good. Oh man, it's such a shame that so many of these characters with the expansion are just like kind of lame. I'm pretty sure that V1 Mihawk, I just got rid of him, but I think he actually does get a bit of cooldown. He goes down to 13, dude. That's actually pretty good. I wish I could find him again. If I'm able to find him, I mean, I would probably put that Mihawk in like a your choice tier, because that cooldown's pretty nice. But he's one of those units that you basically never use. I only really want to talk about ones that may actually see play. We got that Law here, V1 Law. What does he get with his expansion? He does go down to 7 turns, but again, he's a unit that really doesn't see much play. His cooldown's already really low, so it's not like that additional investment of materials to get that one additional cooldown is really going to make that much of a difference. So, you know, you don't really need to worry about that. Same with Kizaru, he's pretty bad. Buggy, no. Judge is a really good one, though. I would say he is like in the usable captains tier. He is not bad. He actually gets his condition removed upon his expansion. He now becomes a rainbow 4.375 boost to all characters, you know, if you got a matching slot, 2.5 otherwise. So like the multipliers are like whatever, but if you have matching slots, dude, like that's really good. Increase the rate of int orbs. Like you could use him as a mono int captain. He is his crew's dedicated attack booster. He changes all orbs, including block, into int if he's the captain. Like there's actually usable circumstances for this character. So Judge is not a bad call, but again, like, you probably should be investing them in higher tier characters. At least that's the way I see it anyway. Corazon is actually not terrible. He gets pretty good cooldown. He does get a buffed captain effect. Not a good captain effect, but the cooldown is the main thing there, which is good. You're bad, you're bad. No, 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 no. Unfortunately, no. Let's have a look at Snake Man. V1 Snake Man, he was one of the first characters that I think he actually was legit the first legend that I limit broke expand, but he does not get any cooldowns, so no. No. Actually, Dofi is an interesting one. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head what this Dofi gets. He goes down to 12 turns with his special, and that's it. No, I wouldn't advise it, but like that's an interesting one because Dofi does get better with you know, the expansion giving him more stats for Pirate Rumble, one of the best Pirate Rumble units in the game. But no, I probably wouldn't advise it, especially if you're more of a beginner player trying to figure out what to expand. You probably shouldn't be focusing on Pirate Rumble. You should be focusing actually on clearing content to begin with. Okay, let's have a look at V1 Big Mom. No, it's so unfortunate that a lot of these characters are not great. I think this Nabi is actually not a terrible choice. She does become a better captain, if I believe. Yeah, 4.5 times to Dex if they've got a beneficial slot. That's actually pretty good. Definitely going in that tier there. Bullet is one that we should probably talk about. Bullet is in a very interesting case because he does go down to 14 turns, so -1 cooldown, and the additional stats is the big thing for him. I think he is kind of like your choice. You know, the options there if you want it. He's not the best choice for expansion, but I mean, if you are using Bullet on the regular, then yeah, not a terrible choice, I guess. Katakuri, definitely a really, really good unit because his captain effect gets upgraded to a crazy amount. As a V1 Katakuri fanboy, I love the buffs that they gave him, reducing the condition for his delay as well. This is a really, really solid unit after expansion for sure. It's a little bit difficult to find friend captains that are also limit broke expand, but the really good thing about this Katakuri is he hybrids really well with like Halloween Law and Halloween Mihawk, so you can do some really cool int teams with him for sure. Lucy is good, but I believe his expansion is not on global yet, but once it does come to global, this is legit one of the best limit break expansions in the game, just looking at the captain effect alone. He becomes like a flat like 4.5 times boost to strength dex quick. I believe he gets cooldown as well, if I remember correctly. He gets like this unit is actually bonkers with expansion, but currently not on global yet, but definitely would be a great candidate once it does arrive. Same with Robin, one of the great candidates for sure. She becomes like a 4.5 cerebral captain, really good, but not on global yet. Marco, no. Whitebeard does get a buffed captain effect, if I remember correctly, and I think he does get cooldown reduction too. Goes down by 3 cooldown, and his captain effect does get upgraded too. This is actually a pretty good choice too. I'm a big fan of this guy. He's great. V1 Fujitora is pretty bad. Gabe is fine, but not overly worth it. None of these are super duper amazing limit break expansions. Blackbeard though is actually not a terrible choice. I believe Blackbeard goes to a flat 4x, I want to say. He goes to... yeah, 4 times boost to all characters if you have the conditions fulfilled, 1.5 times health. Yeah, Blackbeard, usable captain for sure. Hybrids really well with a lot of characters too. So I guess he's fine, but I would say some of the other characters on this tier are probably worth it a bit more. Like, I think Judge is a little bit more usable. Katakuri is probably a little bit more usable. You've got really good stuff with Nami, good deck super types out recently. Then you've got also Whitebeard, who partners well with Striker and Powerhouse Legends, so there's that. No, Zoro and Sanji are just terrible. Like, don't even worry about it. He's terrible. And then you got like Ace versus Akainu. Like, Ace versus Akainu are also pretty good because they get like the minus cooldown and like they're more of a top tier character. But obviously, as time goes on, like the top tier characters of old are not going to be as top tier, you know, in like, you know, let's say 6 months from now. So, you know, these characters that I've said to expand, like potentially like Halloween Law and Mihawk, you may not want to do in like 6 months time. So you definitely look at these first 2 rows first in terms of expanding your character's limit break. And then we've got a bunch of Japanese legends, which hopefully Global gets soon, but we'll have to wait and see how that arrives. We've got also Onami, which should be arriving very soon to Global, who's also kind of your choice. You know, the 6+ Onami does get a buff captain effect, I believe, and then also the additional cooldown as well. So Onami, not a terrible choice, but in my opinion, these ones that we've had here on this list, these are the ones that you should be focusing in on for your materials for limit break expansion here. So I definitely think these top 4 are probably the ones, if you're like a newer player getting into the game, they're probably the ones you want to focus on. And the ones below that, those are characters that get buffed captain effects that make them usable, and you can hybrid them up with other really powerful legends. And then the ones below that in the your choice tier, if you have these characters and you use them a lot, you could potentially do it if you want to, because the additional cooldown or slight buff to their captain effect may be really useful for your account. So again, this is all my personal opinion. You guys don't have to agree with it. I just want to give you guys a bit of guidance as to what I think about the characters, the Sugofest exclusive characters getting limit break expansions. But of course, a lot of the expansions on Global, or just in Treasure Cruise in general, are like just stat boosts, which doesn't really help too many characters out. As I said, Shanks Crew is one of those characters that's so good, even if you have him, you might want to do it anyway, just because of the fact that the stats just make him even better than what he already was. But as I said, the amount of materials that you invest into that character and for what you get out of it is probably not worth it. It doesn't really equate, right? But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video today, and if you guys did enjoy it, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content that I post on my channel, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. But on that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.